I think we're live. Hi everybody, Anna Sabramowicz here. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Listen, I wanted to send you off on this fabulous weekend with some guidance, some inspiration, and some lessons that I learned along the way while I was developing some things that were creative and that drove impact. But in the beginning, it was not so. All right, what do I mean by this? Do you ever have this moment where you're talking to stakeholders or you're talking to subject matter experts and you just come up against a wall every time? Like you have a new idea and it's just this, it feels like constant pressure, constant pushback. And this has happened to me so many times. And I was wondering why that happened to me, because the goal when you're an interactive storytelling designer is to really expose people to fabulous ideas, have them be on board with you, and have them buy into your ideas, right? You really are trying to sell other people on your creative projects. And I was wondering why I faced so much resistance. And I gotta tell you, this is kind of crazy because there will be times, and there've been times in my life where I've had projects that I really wanted to do and I really wanted to pursue and I really wanted to execute on. But because of the wall that I faced, either was it status quo, or whether it was technology, or whether it was mindsets, or whether it was dogma, whatever it was, I didn't follow through on those projects. I not only petered out with my enthusiasm and my creativity and my motivation, but also I just didn't give them everything that I could have, because I just felt it was almost too much for me at that point. And I don't know if you've ever had a project where you wanted to do a great job and you couldn't, and you lost that confidence. If you have, give me a thumbs up, like, oh yeah, this has happened, right? Where you're just like, feel like the world is against you, nobody gets you. And that's very common in our industry, because we are told, to start with with things like styles and you need to get everybody on board, and also you need to have everybody's consensus and all those things. And what happens is, when you're trying to do things that are creative outside of the norm, when you're trying to inspire people to do different things, inevitably you will hit roadblocks. That's just how it works. Now, there's something that I do in my course with my students that I think is very useful, and it's come out of the struggle that I've had. I have to tell you that if I've ever really failed on a project and given up on it, it's not because I faced a ton of roadblocks. Because guess what? You face those on every project. Like, if you didn't, then there'd be something wrong. It'd be like, we're actually not doing anything innovative here if everybody's like, yay, because that means we're not stepping outside of our comfort zone. If I've ever given up on a project, it's because I didn't sell myself on it first. That's hard to admit, but that's why now, when I work with my students, we do the business alignment first. And the business alignment, it's a worksheet that you go through. And it's kind of interesting because initially I used to do needs analysis, and I still, do them. But this part is actually, the biggest part of it is about selling yourself on the project, making sure that you're in 1,000%, because it impacts how you show up, how much you push, and a couple of other things that I really wanted to make evident to you today. So I'm not going to go on too long about it, because I want you to go and be off and do your thing that you do this weekend. Hopefully it's something fun, creative, and maybe there's a story in there or a movie in there someplace. But the problem is that we have to, in those projects, we have to begin with ourselves. We have to begin with us being the number one salesperson to us. Because the thing is, when you're starting these interactive storytelling episodes, not only are they new to everybody, right? But you're going to be like the driving force behind that. And creative stuff, my God, creative stuff takes work, takes effort. Even if I talk about you talking to practitioners, talking to experts in the field, and pulling out their amazing experiences and challenges and stories. That's great. That actually, whenever I walk away from those kinds of interactions, I get absolutely energized. But then comes the work, and the work remains, right? You still have to finesse the script, get it going, make it make it live, test it with people, and all those things take a whole lot of energy. And there's going to be obstacles along the way. There's going to be people who are going to tell you we're not going to be able to get it, maybe this time we don't do that. All those things are going to come up, all of them. And if you haven't sold yourself on your mission, why you really want to do this for real and execute on it because you're making a difference, if you haven't solidified that for yourself, you're not going to follow through on it, and you're going to show up in a way that you're not going to push. It just happens. And this is just my personal experience. But I have to tell you, the students in my class that have followed through, it's a personal thing for them. In the very beginning, they decided this is something I'm doing for me because I believe. And it's not like they're doing it for themselves. Like they're a part of a business. They're a part of an organization. They don't own the solution. But they believe that what they're doing is going to make a difference. And so a part of that business alignment that were the questions that we ask, and I'm going to share 3 of them with you here, is you digging enough at the onset to get that conviction, because you're going to be the one pushing all those buttons. You're going to be the one getting the info, refining the info, asking people, asking them many times, because you're going to need to be strong to get this going. Because if everybody was freaking doing this would be commonplace, but it's not. Creativity, innovative things, 95% of things out there are crap. You know this, right? Look around. They're not delightful, they're not surprising. So if you want to create something out of the ordinary, you are going to have resistance. You're going to have to push yourself, and you're going to have to sell yourself first. And when you do that, then you can start selling it to other people. And if you can't sell them, you will ask and push until you get it where you want it to. So the students in my class that have made it are the ones where for them it wasn't a project, it was their mission. And they sold themselves on it because like 3 months into the project, when you're still like finalizing variables and stuff, that's what's going to keep you going. It's not going to be the, yay, I'm creative. It's going to be, we're past the creative now. We're into the execution. You're going to need that. You're going to need that. So here are the questions. All right, without further ado. Let me move this down. My handy magnet. Ooh, what's this? Oh. All right. Okay. So the first thing is, and this is a longer questionnaire, but I pulled out these ones because I think they'll be like relevant for you, and they're probably not they're a little bit out of the norm of your standard needs analysis formal process, right? Because that really is for, as far as I'm concerned, that's to align yourself with the business and make sure that everybody is kind of going towards the same kind of vision and mission. But this one, like I said, it's for you. It's for you to be clear on what's going on and what you want to achieve and how you're going to get there. So, articulate the problem you're solving. Now, this is very important because have you ever been on a project where you're not really solving a problem, or the problem's really lame? Like, here's a problem. It's out of date. So, does anybody look at it? Do they care? We're just updating stuff. Or, oh, this is another one. Our branding has changed. Oh my God. Okay, yeah. So, now I get it, right? Like, you got to make it look like the stuff that, everybody is expecting. That's not a real problem, right? So that's why this is important, because if you're going to invest your day, your hour, your finite time before you die into something, you want it to be meaningful, right? Because you're gonna peter out. You're not gonna give it all you've got when it's about updating logos and brands, right? That's not a real problem unless you're like the brand person. Unless this is something that is a real problem, but it's gotta be a real problem. And so also the other thing is that I suggest is this is also articulated in 2 sentences, 2-3 sentences, because you got to be clear about it. If it's too convoluted, if it's too like 4 paragraphs, that's not really clear, and then you're never going to reach your target because you don't have clarity in where you're going, right? And the other thing is, if you're clear on the problem that this is solving and you're behind that problem, guess what? This is a script for you to use with other people. You're like, I'm trying to solve this problem. Do you want to help me? And then they get it because it's clear, and then they end up helping you. If it's 4 paragraphs, they'll be like, okay, so what are we doing again? Right? You got to be clear. If you're clear on it, you're going to be a better salesperson, and it's going to be a more powerful message about the problem you're really solving. So this is hard for a lot of people when they first start out. They're like, what's the real problem? What is the real problem? Because you got to throw a bunch of stuff away as well, right? This is where my reverse prism comes in. If you want to look at what that means, go into the my other videos. But it really is about distilling things down to powerful messages, right? And maybe you just want to solve just one problem at a time. And don't dilute it by saying, we have 3. No, focus on one. What's the one big one that you want to solve? Because that'll just give you momentum for more solving later. You right? Okay. Feedback from the real world on the priorities. Have you got that? Have you done any of that analysis? One organization that I worked with, fabulous retailer, what they did is they at the top business level, they came up with a whole bunch of problems that they wanted to solve. And they're like, this could be improved, this could be improved, we could do this, and it was all aligned with a big issue, which is just like increase sales, let's say, or we want to double our sales next quarter, and blah blah blah. What they did is they took those ideas about what they thought at head office level, and then they shared it with people who are actually in the field, and they say, okay, where do you guys like really see the big issues with these 15 topics? Can we pare them down? Can we pare down this 15 that we've identified to something to 5? And now let's pick the top 3, and then we pick the one that we're going to work on first. And that's beautiful, because yes, you have to give people something to almost begin with, so they can start critiquing it and thinking about it and maybe add their own ideas. But what's wonderful then is everybody's kind of in alignment saying, hey, those are good ideas, but these are the top 3, and this is the first one that we should tackle. And that's awesome. It worked out awesomely because it was real, it was tangible, right? So gather that if you can. It's very important. If you're flying blind, you're also not going to have belief that you're solving a real problem, because you don't know, right? And then, is it triggered by another event? Inspired or triggered by? Like an example would be, last year there was an incident at a Starbucks store, and people were arrested, and it brought up the question of, I guess, inclusivity and other things. And what happened is Starbucks said, you know what, this is an issue, we got to address it. Let's shut down our stores and do like a day of awesome training, right? So it could be that whatever you're designing is triggered by a different event, triggered by an initiative, but that also gives you kind of like impetus. Like you could say, you know what, I'm gonna design something that's gonna ensure that never happens again, or that people make better decisions when something like that comes up in the future, because that's a real tangible event, right? Now that's powerful. That's fantastic. And here's my bonus question. And I think you should always come into these because I really, when people come into my world, I don't want them to be like my students. I don't want them to be reactive anymore. I want them to be the consultant who is able to look at things from a different perspective and be like, hey, I can see an opportunity there to improve the way things are working. Let me tell you what I can do for you. So you end up producing more of these packages and products that then go out there and solve problems, instead of people coming to you, they're going, we have a problem and we think training can solve it, what can you do? So it's kind of backwards, right? You're going out there with your perspective about your toolkit and what optimizations you can make, and you're now implementing those. So you're being way more strategic, you're way more of a business partner and advisor, instead of just the person who does the work because they're told to. I hope that's, not too harsh. All right, so Can we 10x something? Now, in a business, usually there's one or two things that a business is already doing really, really well. And if they just did that like a lot more awesomely, they'd win. And that's kind of the idea behind, like, when Steve Jobs came back to Apple after they kicked him out and they had like 300 products, and he's like, no. We gotta get focused, scale it down, and do those like 10 things. I think he brought the categories down, and 10 things that we do, and that's it, right? So he had to let go of some of those darlings. But most organizations, let's say they're doing something really well already, and you can see that. And instead of trying to fix a problem, if you just focused on making that thing 10x, like as in 10 times better, that might actually get rid of all the other stuff. So I always I'm like, hey, is there stuff that we're doing that's awesome? What if we just did more of that? Would that actually eliminate our need to try and keep up with these other things? What if we just focused on our Apple phone or our iMac, right? Would that help? And sometimes it actually does. Sometimes it really does. So it's like, how can we if 20% of our salespeople are kicking butt and bringing in 80% of the revenue, what's the next 20% that I can bring up to speed? And actually then, instead of focusing on people who suck at sales right now and we're trying to get them to be the average, what about those people who are on the cusp of average that we could bump up to the 20% that are making the most revenue? How can I optimize those people? Or how can I optimize the 20% to be even better at what they do? Boom, right? Who's the 1% of the 20%? How can we optimize the rest of them to be that level? So we've got to think about it a little differently, flip it on its head. But all of this, as I said, all of this is for you, because you're going to be driving this. You're going to be selling this. You're going to be knocking on doors, right? You're going to be picking up the phone. As much as when I say this is just great creative work, you're going to lock yourself in a room and be like, I'm going to put up my next interactive storytelling episode and it's going to be amazing. No, you're going to have to talk to people, right? You're going to have to get buy-in, input, all those things. So how do you do that? You got to own that. You got to sell it to yourself first. And then when you got the conviction, you will find ways. When you face negativity, you're going to face obstacles, you're going to face constraints, you're going to face status quo, the way we've done this. Everything's going to be against you. Of course. That's life. But you're going to be a different you showing up. You're going to be the person who's like, okay, this is just one way you said no. All right, I'm going to figure out a different way. I'm going to figure out a different strategy because this is my mission. That's how you got to think about it. So when you come in with that mindset, you just keep on finding ways to get it done, and it'll be awesome. And some of the things that I've seen come through have been amazing. Absolutely made me proud. So it's really cool, but you need to make it your mission. So I hope that was helpful and maybe give you a little bit of that boost that you needed for the weekend. You're going to rethink some stuff. You're going to come back to some things. Another thing is keep asking questions. Keep asking questions until you get it sold, till you're sold on it. If you don't like the way the problem you're solving, go back and say, this isn't a good problem. You're spending my time. I'm spending my time. Let's solve a good problem, an expensive problem, a real problem, right? Get behind it. Get them behind it. When everybody's behind it, damn the power. It's just, the momentum is builds. It's exponential. So get there, push. All right? I'll talk to you next time. Take care.